Thank you very much for that introduction, and good evening everyone. I hope you're still awake and ready for my talk. Okay, let me introduce myself. I've been at the University of Wollongong for 25 years and I'm interested in nutrition and what we eat in relation to our health. In particular, I'm interested in one building block in foods, and that is the omega-3 fats. The omega-3 fats are found in fish and they have been shown to have lots of health benefits. Why is this the case? Put simply, we just don't eat enough omega-3s. So I'm going to show you the importance of fish for pregnancy, but first, let's introduce the omega-3 building block and what it can do. So omega-3 fats, or docosahexaenoic acid, and from now on I'll just refer it to DHA, it's a lot easier to say, is found in fish, and fish contains a lot of DHA. It's been shown to have cardiovascular disease benefits in that it can improve our lipid levels, which are risk factors for heart disease. It also improves our vascular tone, so allowing the blood to flow through our bodies. And it also stabilises cardiac arrhythmia. Lots of cardiovascular benefits. It also has anti-inflammatory properties. For example, in people with rheumatoid arthritis, my colleagues in Adelaide put them on lots and lots of omega-3s to treat their joint pain and so forth. But recent research has also shown that if you're at risk of developing rheumatoid arthritis, that you can slow the progression of that disease just by consuming omega-3s. More recently, there's been research showing omega-3s and behavioural disorders such as ADHD. And recently, together with Pia Winberg, we did a pilot study down at South Coast Correctional Centre where we showed that the inmates at that correctional centre had low omega-3 levels, had higher levels of aggressive behaviour. And as a result of that, we've been awarded a very large grant to look at omega-3 supplementation in adult male prisoners as a multi-centre trial. But I'm not going to be talking about omega-3s and aggressive behaviour tonight. I want to focus on pregnancy. Now, pregnancy, omega-3s is very important because in the last trimester of pregnancy, when the growing fetus accrues a lot of brain matter, that's when it needs lots and lots of DHA. So that has been well documented. But what hasn't been well documented is that omega-3s are also important for very early pregnancy. And that's what I'll focus on today. So firstly, a bit more about omega-3s. 20% of our brain fat is DHA. So 1/5 of our brain fat is DHA, which is the omega-3. Of the omega-3 fats in our brain, 90% is DHA. So DHA is very important for our brains. DHA is in every cell in our body, but it's highly concentrated in the brain. And what I want to focus on now is just these neuronal cells or brain cells, and where is the DHA and what does it do? So in textbooks, we have neuronal cells drawn like this. DHA is responsible for neurite outgrowth, meaning new neuronal cells are being formed. And when you look at the cell membrane, which is shown schematically drawn here, we have what's called a phospholipid bilayer. Now I'm going into the molecular species here and hopefully you'll stay with me. Now this phospholipid bilayer consists of phospholipid molecules where you have what's called a polar head and you have 2 fatty acid chains associated with it. You'll note that one of them is straight and the other one is kinked. And in fact, this one is DHA. It has lots of kinks in that it curls up on itself. So when you're looking at these phospholipid species, and if you compare the ones where the fatty acid tail only has one kink, they are packed tightly together, but where there is DHA with lots of kinks, they're spaced apart. Now this video here shows it more in real life because this is drawn statically, whereas our cells are alive and our cells are dancing at the moment because I'm sure you all have some DHA. So the brown is the equivalent of the blue head, Here's your straight fatty acid chain, and here is your DHA, and look at it go. It's curling up at the third carbon, that's why it's called omega-3. It's curling up at the third carbon, that's very important because it's already starting to push out and take up more space in that cell membrane. So it's taking up more space. It's also curling up on itself and really allowing that space to develop such that we can get proper communication from inside the cell to outside the cell, and also between cells. And that's exactly what we need in our brains, is to have that proper communication. Just like our neuronal system is like the national broadband network. Where the signal is transferred across, down the optic fibres. Well, in our human body, the signal has to come from our brain such that we can walk, because our brain is telling our muscles what to do. Now, focusing now on very early pregnancy then, and this is early pregnancy because we're looking at days 21 to days 28 of gestation, so probably before the mother even knows she's really pregnant. What occurs there is we have closure of the neural tube. Now, the neural tube is like the broadband network. You need to have that encased in some casing because otherwise the fibre optics are not protected. Like a broadband network, we need to protect our nerves. So we have to develop the neural tube, which is an envelope that goes around our nerve fibres, and it actually then goes around the nerves, forms the backbone, and here's the start of the formation of the head. And within a week, we've basically zipped up that enclosure, and we now have a backbone. Now, folate is a B vitamin, and it's very well documented that folate plays a role in this closure of the neural tube. Folate is an essential nutrient. We have to get that from our diet. Now, if in circumstances where the mother does not have enough folate, then we can result in neural tube defects like spina bifida. Spina bifida is where you don't get that proper zipping up of the neural tube and you get spinal deformities. So as shown schematically here, this is where the fetus did not have adequate folate, and now we have what's called a neural tube defect where you didn't form the backbone properly. Now we know that folate is essential for this process, and we get that from our green leafy vegetables. But because we don't consume a lot of vegetables, the Australian government has decided to fortify all bread-making flour with folate in the hope of reducing neural tube defects. But research has shown that the neural tube defects, like spina bifida, can be reduced by up to 70% by taking folate supplements 1 month prior to and the first 3 months of pregnancy to cover this closure of the neural tube. DHA is also important. Now remember that DHA, it's the omega-3 fat that promotes formation of new neuronal cells. So this is our early gestation timeline. So here we have non-pregnant. Here we have day 7 to day 45 of gestation. And once the egg is fertilised, it then forms 2 cells. 2 cells form 4 cells. 4 cells form 8 cells. So they keep multiplying. By day 7 to 10, you get that mass of cells implanted in the uterus. By day 18 of gestation, you're starting to see the formation of the neural tube. By day 29, we have now zipped up that tube. You can see the head formed, and you're already starting to form some limbs. And it's during this time, between day 18 and 29, that the woman can start testing her urine sample to see if she's pregnant or not. And obviously, closer you get to day 29, the signal will be stronger. And day 45, now the fetus has a positive fetal heartbeat, and now we have the circulation established between the fetus and the mother. But what I want to do is just focus on these days where the neural tube is being formed and closed. So what needs to happen in terms of DHA is that the mother needs to mobilise DHA at this critical time from day 18 to 29. She can do this by eating fish. It's a rich source of DHA. But what our research has shown is that there's increased synthesis of alpha-linolenic acid through to DHA, and that's obviously controlled by the pregnancy hormones. The mother can also increase release of DHA from maternal adipose tissue and also other maternal tissues, such as possibly her own brain. So the old wives' tale is true. Fish is brain food. Thank you very much.